The story starts here, in the heart of the city.
We continue to follow the ongoing developments.
The student group is the first to take on such a project.
Everyone is waiting for a vote on the bill.
The team is winning at a record-breaking pace.
It's an issue for residents here and around Boston.
The story is coming up on Suffolk U News.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Suffolk U News, the weekly news program brought to you by the Department of Communication and Journalism at Suffolk University. I'm Ashley Cullinane from Braintree.
And I'm Yvette Hernandez from Denver, Colorado. We're happy to be coming to you from our studio in downtown Boston, courtesy of your cable company and on the internet.
We begin by introducing a controversial issue, housing discrimination. Landlords are being accused of shutting their doors on people that they just don't want as renters.
This act is illegal, and the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development has granted Suffolk University a large sum of money to lead the fight against unfair renting practices.
Joining us live here in the studio is Suffolk U News reporter Daveson Perez. Daveson, just who is being affected by this discrimination?
It's affecting a lot of people, Ashley and Yvette. People who have the capabilities to rent apartments, the landlords just aren't letting them do it. According to many of the people I spoke to, housing discrimination comes from a landlord's inability to make their apartments livable for what lawyers call protected classes. These protected classes can be anything from minorities to families with children. The testing program here at our law school wants to put pressure on landlords to follow fair housing law.
So my issue is these landlords having all this power, all this authority to hand out these apartments, yet they're discriminating against people who can probably or most definitely afford it if I'm looking there.
Andy Concepcion is Latino and has experienced housing discrimination before with his mother. He believes the power should be in the hands of the people.
Because they own the buildings, they felt that they had all the power. But really the power vested in the people. If the people didn't live there, you'd be out of an apartment.
Steps are being taken at Suffolk University's law school to make apartment buying more of an even playing field for renters. $1.1 million in federal dollars has been granted to fund a housing discrimination testing program. The program teaches volunteers about fair housing law and allows them to pose as renters. These volunteers are on the lookout for discriminatory acts committed by landlords.
They're all instructed to have an interaction, have it be as normal as possible, and to be very scrupulous about remembering the details and recording them in an unbiased way.
Former tester Regina Holloway found great satisfaction in volunteering.
I know what it feels like to experience discrimination, and housing discrimination in particular. So for me, it was rewarding because I felt like I was helping to eradicate discrimination.
Testers who participate in the program have the opportunity to get paid $100 per site visit and $50 per phone test. Ashley, there are 150 volunteers at the moment, and they're looking for more.
Right, well, I mean, Suffolk has a huge renter population, so I think they won't have trouble finding anyone else. The next training session to be part of the program is on April 11th at the law school.
As Women's History Month ends, some wonder if next year will be the year a woman makes presidential history.
When women are encouraged to run, and they do run, they win at the same rate.
Former Senator and Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is expected to run, but she isn't the only woman who is thought to be qualified.
Hillary Clinton has made indications that she's running. I think she'd be a great candidate for the Democratic Party. In our own state, we have Senator Elizabeth Warren, who I think would be a great candidate if she decided to run. She's indicated she doesn't want to.
Since 1964, the number of female voters has exceeded the number of male voters, and the possibility of a woman president could inspire some to vote in the 2016 election.
With Hillary Clinton, you've got a situation where there are women who are not registered to vote who would register and vote for her because of her persona, who she is.
Some are skeptical of this motive.
I think a lot of people might vote for her because she's a woman, which might not be the best reason to vote for someone. I'd like to see a Republican woman run. I honestly wish that Condoleezza Rice would get into the race. I think she's strong.
Polls conducted by Suffolk University show there's a possibility of a candidate from an independent party to make a run.
I'm seeing a lot of people showing us by their sentiments that they're dissatisfied in Democratic and Republican polls. And to me, that's an opening for someone to get on the national stage as an alternative.
Earlier this week, Carly Fiorina continued to fuel speculation she would enter the race to be the Republican nominee for president.
While we await next year's election, citizens of the United States may be awaiting a new voting standard. During a town hall meeting in Cleveland, President Barack Obama expressed his opinion about having voting be mandatory. The president says if everybody voted, then it would completely change the political map in this country. His idea about mandatory voting has angered many U.S. citizens who believe not voting is their own right. Our expert again about politics and voting is David Paleologos, who understands why the president believes mandatory voting is something the United States needs.
Then when you open up the throttle a little bit and you have more people voting, it benefits the Democratic Party. So it becomes a political issue. It really shouldn't be a political issue, but it becomes that.
President Obama has not responded to the outrage by citizens. Meanwhile, it doesn't look like the Senate will support his call for standard voting.
Massachusetts may soon be opting out of MCAS standardized testing.
To replace the MCAS is the PARCC test, which is an assessment of readiness for college and careers. According to a state education survey, students are performing better on the new PARCC test and have easily adapted to its testing style. More than half of the school districts in Massachusetts have opted to use the PARCC test instead of the MCAS this spring. Public hearings will help determine if the PARCC test will permanently replace MCAS testing.
It's a food fight between Boston Public Schools and parents over nutritious food. New guidelines require schools to include low-carb, low-fat foods that include essential nutrients. But these foods come at a price. With recent budget cuts, students won't be eating as many foods with essential nutrients and also won't have as many options in the lunch line. Boston Public Schools hopes by limiting the amount of food offered, students won't be overserved and they will save on food waste.
This year, 35,000 people will run in the Boston Marathon. One of those heading on Boylston Street is one of our own.
Anyone can kick a ball around, but it takes a certain person to run a marathon.
Hear more from one Suffolk student lacing up for the race for the very first time.
Also coming up, some MBTA trains are getting a facelift. We'll tell you which line when Suffolk U News continues.
I've got a job to do today.
I've got a job to do today.
Have a good first day at work, Mom.
Your donations to Goodwill fund job training programs right in your community.
Feels good to start fresh, right?
Sure does. And like that, you're a job creator.
You know what, guys? There's a lot of tree branches and dry brush over here. We should probably move the bonfire over there.
I'm guessing Smokey liked that idea.
For most, April 15th is tax deadline day, but this April 15th here in Boston at least is going to be the first One Fund Boston Day.
It's a story that begins our team coverage of the race for which we and the city are very well known. The One Boston Day idea comes from here, Boylston Street, the birthplace of Boston Strong. Boston Mayor Marty Walsh says One Boston Day is about honoring the resiliency, generosity, and strength that the city demonstrated after the 2013 Boston Marathon bombings.
It really stemmed from what happened around Marathon Monday, where the Boston Strong model came from, people rallying around the survivors and the victims of Marathon Monday, and how Boston really came together as a city, and so much support from not just around Boston, but Massachusetts.
On the morning of April 15th, Walsh will attend the raising of honorary banners on Boylston Street to honor the bombing victims and survivors.
The emotional case testimony from both prosecution and defense in the Boston Marathon bombing trial has finally come to a rest. The defense finished presenting its case Tuesday, calling just 4 expert witnesses to the stands. The defense already admitted Johar Tsarnaev is responsible for placing a bomb on Boylston Street that killed 3 people, but are trying to put the blame on brother Tamerlan. Closing arguments will be made on Monday.
2 years after the tragedy, runners are again taking back the finish line.
Among the thousands running miles on the 20th, Suffolk sophomore Matt Durkin. He has been training for months. The Suffolk snowy campus around here has been his stomping grounds, weaving through the common and preparing himself for his first marathon Monday. He says it's his fellow SU Rams pushing him to the finish line.
It's just so fun because all my friends are really excited about coming to cheer me on, like that are from Suffolk. So I can't wait to bring everyone, and there's actually a few other people that I know from Suffolk that are running the marathon that I'm really excited to run with them and kind of have the Rams take over the Boston Marathon this year.
Stay with Suffolk U News as we spotlight other students taking on the big race.
Green Line trolleys are making their way back to Boston after being refurbished at an engineering facility in New York.
The nearly 30-year-old trolleys are part of a more than $100 million project. MBTA officials say the first refurbished trolley car is set to return to Boston any day now. In all 86 Green Line trolleys will be updated. The complete project should be finished by sometime next year. And not to snow on your parade, most of the work is mechanical and on the mechanical parts of the train, so don't expect club car amenities or anything. Of course, I take the Red Line every day, and those are the newest train cars, so I don't expect changes anytime soon.
Yeah, I take the Green Line, and I would love to see amenities, but hey, that's not my decision. Sun is shining, but some Boston neighborhoods are still left in the cold after a historic winter.
So now it's cleanup time. There's a long road to recovery as we head into April. Stay tuned to see how city leaders are springing into action.
So I've come up with a family emergency plan.
Great. What is it?
It's difficult to talk about, so I'm not telling you.
How will we know what to do?
You won't.
I'm so glad I won't have to remember anything.
And me too. Thanks for this, sweetie.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Okay, so we drowned the fire,
Yep.
stirred it, drowned it again, and now just feel if it's cold.
Yeah.
Cool.
Smokey just gave me a bear hug.
I know. I already posted it.
With temperatures reaching nearly 60 degrees, some may believe springtime has finally arrived in Boston.
But city officials are reminding people Boston is still in recovery mode, and it's not pretty.
We'll clean it, but for God almighty, you clean up after your dogs if you're going to walk them out there.
Mayor Marty Walsh saying it's time to scrub the hub. As the snow melts, dirt, trash, and dog soil line the once shining streets. After weeks of unpredictable storms, Boston learned its lesson.
We're going to be moving forward.
So moving forward, city officials have developed a game plan, and they're sharing it with anyone willing to help.
We really encourage Main Street business districts and businesses in general to get out in front of your own stores and clean up. Literally, it takes you 15 seconds to clean a 10 foot, 15 feet.
City Public Works is saying goodbye to expensive snow melters. They may take away a ton of snow, but cost just as much to rent.
$2,500 to $4,000 an hour. An hour, yeah.
Instead, money will go to beautifying Boston, cleaning up fields, schools, and top tourist destinations that are right now being treated like garbage. Leaders are telling everyone,
this was the snowiest winter ever.
Be careful with that last bit of shoveling. You don't know what's underneath. And they say, number one, be patient. A beautiful Boston is just around the corner.
It's not going to look pretty until the flowers start to bloom, and that's the reality, but they're going to get to it as fast as they can.
Mayor Marty Walsh will host 3 cleanup events for the community later this month.
That does it for this edition of Suffolk U News. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yvette Hernandez.
And I'm Ashley Cullinane. Be sure to keep watching our newscast coming to you from the school with the heart.
In the heart of the city. Goodbye.